The Pfaff Passport 3.0 is super easy to thread and wind a bobbin. We're going to go ahead and walk you through all the steps to get the machine set up and ready to sew. So starting off with good quality thread, yes, that does make a huge difference. I'm going to go ahead and slide this on, and since this spool is a little bit bigger, I'm going to use one of the bigger spool caps. Make sure that there is no restriction as the thread comes off that spool, and we're following kind of the dotted lines for winding a bobbin first. So we're going to go underneath here, and then this is a little pre-tensioner. You can kind of hear me lifting it up. You want to make sure that the thread goes underneath it, and then follow the direction of this picture printed right on the top of the machine for which way to go around it. Then take one of your bobbins, and I always go from the inside out. So I'm coming inside, then I'll have a tail up here that I can hold on to. Place it on my bobbin winder and engage it. When you engage it, your screen will say SP, and that means that the bobbin winder is going to start to spin if you step on the foot control. And I'm going to just hold my hand straight up. I've wrapped around my fingers a couple times, but I'm holding on tight because eventually it'll just break off, and that tail should be fairly hidden. Actually, it's not completely. If you ever get a little bit of thread just kind of sticking up, make sure that it gets clipped. This is a good example. Get it so no tail is in the way. And let's go ahead. We're going to wind a full bobbin because that's always what I do. And of course, if you need more bobbins, it's the Class 15 plastic bobbins will fit the Pfaff Passport 3.0. So I always have tons of bobbins. We do find our customers usually have anywhere from 15 to 20 bobbins at any given time. They wouldn't want to be without any less. And just keep winding until it completely stops. If for any reason your bobbin does not fill all the way out to your liking, there is an adjustment right down here with this screwdriver. It's very slight, but what it does is it adjusts the stopper from when it kind of starts to not want to spin any further. So right now I'm fairly happy with this, but if I wanted to fill a little bit more, I can just give that a little adjust. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and I'm going to thread the machine first, but I'll set this aside and we'll show you how the bobbin goes in at the end. So first thing, with this pre-tensioner that we went around, this is only used when we wind a bobbin. So we're coming from the spool underneath the first guide and then behind the little guide back here, the little silver guide. Now, what I usually do is hold on to this thread. I want some resistance as I'm coming down this area. This little fin that's sticking up, that is actually part of the tension discs, which means that when your presser foot is up, so do make sure that you've lifted the presser foot and it is in the up position, these discs are open. But I want to make sure that my thread gets all the way down into those discs when I thread the machine. If it doesn't, then that's part of what gives you those loopy threads on the underneath part of your machine or underneath your fabric, and that just does not work well. Next, come all the way down and come underneath this small white area, and we're going to go in on the right side all the way to the back and then down on the left side. You're going to notice there's a little groove in here that the thread will come forward and sit in. So you don't have to thread that manually. So many people try to do that. I'm like, no, it's super easy. Just go back and forward. Now, for any reason that you've turned the hand wheel, just make sure that that's at kind of the highest position, or even touch your needle up, needle down button, and then that way that will cycle through and give you that perfect position for the take-up lever. Come all the way down. There's one guide kind of at the base of this housing, and then there's one guide at the top of the needle. So make sure you're catching both guides before you use your needle threader, which happens to still have some plastic on it. Let me pull that out. All right. All right. Now, I will show you a close-up video of how the needle threader works, but pretty much it allows you to pull the super quick loop of thread through the machine. Now, when you go to put your bobbin in, you want to make sure that the thread is coming off the left side of the bobbin. If you put it in upside down, things are not going to always work as smooth, and it's actually going to be harder to get into this little guide. I like to put my finger on the bobbin so it stops spinning, and you're going to follow the arrows through the little paths. We're coming underneath here, so the bobbin is spinning counterclockwise, which is correct. Now, right up over the top, there's another little white arrow, kind of looks like a U-turn. Follow the U-turn, and then down below here, there's a little arrow pointing practically to me that right under here is a thread cutter. Sometimes what I like to do is actually put the little door on, then cut the thread, and that's the perfect length for the machine to pull this bobbin thread up and start to sew. So I don't actually have to take a stitch or anything. I can start with just one thread up here at the top of the machine, and I'm going to just take some fabric and fold it in half. You'll see me throughout these videos always sewing on 2 layers of fabric. I'm going to reach behind. The little presser foot lowering is kind of more on the inside of the machine. On this one, I love that. I don't have to reach all the way to the back. And then I'm going to just go ahead. I'm going to just do some simple stitching. Oh, I did not engage the dual feet, so I need to pull that all the way down. And now I am set. If I try to sew with the presser foot up, then that gives me those little beeps. And now I am completely ready to stitch. And when you hear a nice smooth stitch, you know that you have threaded it correctly. Now I'm going to touch the little picture of the scissors because that's going to go ahead and cut my thread. I'll be able to lift up my presser foot and look, I have a perfect seam. So if it looks the same on the front as it does on the back, and then these little threads, that's what was cut. I love the fact that it pulls my top thread down to the back side, snips it off, and I'm left with just the thread coming out of the needle once again. So again, don't worry about not having bobbin thread up top. As soon as you start to stitch, that will come up in the next stitching line. Ta-da!